Hey YouTube, Joe Boy here. So today I want to talk about Big Mom. This is something that I'm sure a lot of you were waiting on since I didn't actually upload my review to chapter 843 of One Piece. But before I do want to bring up something that is really important, which is that I uploaded a theory about a week ago in regards to Sanji's quote-unquote cosmic powers and the relationship potentially between Venus and Sanji. And so in my comment section, a YouTuber theorist named Rob Gucci mentioned that 3 months prior to me uploading this theory, he had done a very similar theory. And I checked it out, and he was totally right. He was the first person that I am aware of that made connections between Venus and Sanji. And when actually watching his video, I found it to be a lot better than the theory that I talked about in that video. I had some questions at the end about some of the connections that I talked about, and honestly, Rob Gucci covered these a lot more thoroughly than anything that I talked about in that video. So I recommend that, first of all, if you liked that theory, go ahead and check out Rob Gucci's theory. I'll link it in the description, and as well, just check out Rob Gucci's channel as well. He's severely undersubscribed and is deserving of way more subscribers and views than he gets. But now, without further ado, let's talk about Big Mom. And as of this last chapter, things just got so crazy. Big Mom now, before, she wasn't really even talked about as one of the strongest Yonko. It was always Kaido and Shanks and Blackbeard, and Big Mom was just mentioned but never really had any sort of following aside from the fact that she was a Yonko. But now, things are changing. Big Mom seems even stronger than she was previously, and now has legitimate discussions about where she ranks within the Yonko. And you guys know why. As of this last chapter, Big Mom not only has a devil fruit which allows her to manipulate souls, but she also apparently has the ability to control the weather. This is just insane. And so there's a lot of speculation as to the origin of this power. I have one idea that I don't think anyone has talked about, and I think has a decent amount of evidence to support it. But there's going to be a lot of other ideas as well, and I'd like to quickly address a lot of what I see, but undoubtedly I won't cover all of the ideas that you may potentially have. So just keep this general thought in your mind. It's possible. Whatever you're thinking, it's probably possible unless you made some sort of glaring error or you built your conclusion based on nothing. If it's based on something, it's probably possible, but I can't believe multiple things at one time. So probably I'm going to say that I don't believe whatever it is that you believe. And that's fine. But I do want to open up discussion on a bunch of these different topics. But let's start with the one thing that I'm hearing that I definitely do not believe, to the point that I think that we can ignore this possibility, which is that a lot of people are speculating Big Mom has powers over souls, and Big Mom has powers over the weather. So is it possible that Big Mom has two distinct devil fruit? I absolutely in no way believe that this is possible. The Gorosei specifically comment on Blackbeard being the first person in history to obtain the powers of two devil fruit. And so if Big Mom actually did eat two devil fruit, I would suspect that the Gorosei would know. It would degrade the value of Blackbeard in the story, in my opinion. So whatever creates this weather effects that Big Mom has, I do not believe that it comes from a second devil fruit. But now let's get into things that I actually do think are possible, but I do not believe. And so one of the major ones that are coming about is that perhaps it's possible that Big Mom's soul fruit also allows her to manipulate the weather. I definitely believe that this is possible. First of all, because of the idea of awakening. And because awakenings are not fleshed out in the story pretty much at all. We have so few examples of how exactly devil fruits awaken, that the possibility that an awakened soul devil fruit would affect the weather, Oda could do something to make this possible, I feel like. But it's so hard to see the connection between souls and then weather for me to really get behind this idea. So essentially what I'm saying is that I would need more evidence that would potentially substantiate this idea before I would jump on that ship. But then again, there seems to be a connection between souls and devil fruit. I've done some theories on this topic. I'll go ahead and link them in the description. but many of you will know that I've drawn conclusions that potentially relate both souls and devil fruit, and we know devil fruits have special abilities that they grant the eater of the devil fruit. And so with this being said, where exactly does the power of the devil fruit come from? If a devil fruit does indeed contain a soul, then does the source of this power come from the soul that resides within the devil fruit? So here's some highly speculative speculation that I'm going to give to you right now. And so I'm not going to explain this fully, but it's just to give you sort of an idea of how I could see this being possible. So you have devil fruits that were created sometime in the past, and these devil fruits contain the souls of people that were somehow trapped on Earth and then stuck into devil fruits to forever sort of switch between devil fruits, the user of the devil fruit, and then when the user dies, then they go back to another fruit and transform that fruit into a devil fruit. But they were all originally souls of people. These people's souls had inherent powers that normal people during their lifespans would not be able to activate. But in devil fruit form, they actually transform the eater of the devil fruit into the power of the soul. So if you look at Zoro or you look at Sanji, Zoro has this Asura form, which seems to be a manifestation of his, I don't want to say soul, but a manifestation of his spirit. And so perhaps this is literally Zoro's soul taking on its devil fruit power. So that would make Zoro's soul, and like if it was trapped into a devil fruit, be a mythical zone Asura devil fruit. Going into Sanji seems to have powers over fire, which seem very similar to the kind of powers that Zoro has, sort of like a spiritual energy. Perhaps Sanji as well, his soul takes on the spirit of fire. And so if Sanji's soul was removed from his body and then somehow became a devil fruit through some unknown process, then his soul would grant the eater of that devil fruit some sort of fire abilities. So hopefully you get what I'm trying to say, and I know that this thought at this point is crazy, which is why I don't believe it. But if you take Big Mom and her soul power, being able to extract souls, and these souls have inherent properties which would grant people powers in certain circumstances, then this would allow for the possibility for Big Mom to do some really, really crazy things with her soul power, especially if souls are sort of what grants devil fruits their abilities in the first place. Going into another idea, people are drawing connections between Haki and Big Mom's ability to control the weather, because we've seen on multiple occasions how the weather has been directly affected by clashes of Haki. Again, I don't believe this, because mainly whenever we see Haki affecting the weather, specifically Conqueror's Haki affecting the weather, it's more of like a clash of wills being displayed visually. So you have Shanks and you have Whitebeard. Each of them are activating their Conqueror's Haki, and sort of their wills are clashing against each other, so much so that it disrupts the heavens and therefore changes the weather. So as I said, I always assumed that this was just a direct result of opposing wills affecting each other. But again, it's possible that someone's own will, through their own sort of willpower, they can control the weather. Or not necessarily control, but affect it. Create storms based on their mental state alone. Like they feel angry, and because their willpower is so strong, they can command the heavens to imitate how they feel. This is definitely something that I think is possible, but at this point in time, I would need a little bit more to really get behind the idea. And honestly, this ties really nicely for some people with Goldie Roger back in the Ed War, which was shown in Chapter 0. He was facing off against Shiki and his entire fleet. It was just Roger's ship, and all seemed lost for Roger, until somehow a storm miraculously appeared, destroyed half of Shiki's fleet, and Goldie Roger managed to sort of beat them and then escape. But where did the storm come from? Is it possible that this storm arose because Goldie Roger's will was so strong that he could command the weather? And so the main reason why I don't think that this is possible is because the way that it was told to us in this chapter, it seemed like a one-time off lucky event. Not that Goldie Roger also had the power to command the weather, but that in this one situation somehow a storm appeared to save Roger. Basically, Roger was incredibly lucky. And so if I feel like if Roger could do this at any point in time. It wouldn't have been a lucky event, it would have been Goldie Roger using his power over weather to flip the tides of the battle. And so because of that, there's some logical inconsistencies that I see with that situation, which make me believe that Roger couldn't do this at his own command. But again, since that was only one chapter and a couple lines and we don't really know much about Goldie Roger, perhaps I'm misreading what was going on in that scene. There's also a lot of people that believe that Monkey D. Dragon's ability to in some way control the weather, which is practically confirmed, has something to do with his hockey. This was an idea that actually predated anything that was going on in this last chapter with Big Mom. But I'm not going to go into too much depth, but I'm just going to say I believe Monkey D. Dragon has a devil fruit, which allows him to manipulate the weather in some way. Whether that's the wind devil fruit, which he can use to help create storms through just the wind powers. He has a weather devil fruit itself, or he has a mythical zone devil fruit, which allows him to in some way manipulate the weather. I believe that Dragon has a devil fruit, and that's why I don't believe that the Dragon situation has anything to do with what Big Mom is doing whatsoever. But for those of you who don't know why people think that Dragon's hockey could be the reason why he can affect the weather, I suggest that you Google or look up or find theories relating Dragon and its hockey to the weather and come to your own conclusion on whether you think it's legit or not. But now let's get into my ideas. And so I don't think this first one is going to be very popular because in general people like crazy shit in One Piece. They really like the idea that Big Mom can actually control the weather, and a lot of people sort of run with the idea. But I want to throw out the possibility that Big Mom actually can't control the weather at all. But before you guys hate on me, hear me out. There's several inconsistencies that I want to discuss. So where did we learn that Big Mom actually has control of the weather? Who did we learn that from? Well, we learned it from Pound. And the way that he says it is really interesting. So first he talks about how Snack was defeated by Arouge, and then that pissed off Big Mom, and so Big Mom brought a storm over Arouge's fleet, destroying it. And so what Pound says is actually extremely interesting, which he says, rumor has it. So in other words, by saying rumor has it, it implies that Pound did not know that that actually occurred. He just heard from other people that it happened. So he is not a reliable source. Oda actually does this trick a lot throughout the story of One Piece. He makes characters who don't actually know the situation say something in a way to make us believe that something is possible, but because they don't actually know, it allows for the possibility that they are wrong. So some examples of this so that you know what I'm talking about. Well, when we were leading up to the Zou arc, there was commentary from Kinemon and Kanjuro and Law and everyone that speculated that the Minks were a human-hating tribe that were dangerous to humans. And so we actually get to Zou, we finally meet the Minks, and this is 100% debunked from the mouth of the Mink herself, Wanda. Wanda states that the Minks don't hate humans, they look at them as hairless monkey minks, and that they only hate people who they hate. Doesn't matter whether you're a human or a mink. So essentially what Kinemon and Kanjuro and Law were saying was a rumor. They had not had any personal experience with the mink tribe outside of Beppo, but he was sort of never really part of that group for the majority of his life. So they just didn't know, and that allowed Oda the opportunity for them to say something that was untrue to create a sense of drama that wasn't really there. In addition to this, there's actually more information which makes me doubt that Big Mom actually used a storm to destroy Arouge's fleet as well, which is that Cracker, for one, was definitely there for the defeat of Arouge. We've learned this on several situations. Big Mom sent Cracker to defeat Arouge after Arouge defeated Snack, so Cracker was a first-person witness of what happened. Additionally, Brule is a lot higher ranking than Pound, and Brule also comments on this situation as well. And what they say is extremely interesting and contradictory to what Pound believes. So Pound believes that Big Mom used a storm to destroy Arouge's fleet. And the fact that Pound does not absolutely know that this occurred suggests to me that this storm didn't appear over Whole Cake Island. mainly because Pound is on Whole Cake Island. So I would suspect that if he had been there, then he would know whether a storm appeared or it didn't. But he says rumor has it. So that suggests to me doubt, which suggests to me that the storm did not appear there. But then Brûlé tells us that Arouge was defeated in the Seducing Woods. She thinks that Arouge must still be somewhere in the Seducing Woods after they defeated him, probably dead. So, Seducing Woods is on Whole Cake Island. How the hell did Pound miss this if this occurred directly over the main island? Additionally, Pound sort of describes a seafaring battle, but then Arouge somehow, after his fleet was defeated, ended up on Whole Cake Island fighting Cracker specifically, separate to his crew. And then none of these details really add up to me 100%. It just seems as though Pound doesn't really know what happened, which is backed up by the fact that he says rumor has it. And then if we ask ourselves, why would Oda mislead us through Pound as to what happened to Arouge? And I think the main reason that he might want to be misleading us is because Big Mom didn't actually create a storm to defeat Arouge. This whole thing is just a lie. A rumor spread potentially by Big Mom herself in order to make her appear more intimidating to pirates around the world. We already have direct evidence that Big Mom cares what people think about her. When Jinbei left her crew, or was trying to do that, basically she said that Jinbei doing this made her look bad. And so from this we can sort of conclude that Big Mom cares. And if Big Mom cares, there's also the possibility that she would lie to people, spread misinformation to make herself look better. I'm also doubtful that Big Mom would be extremely angry if one of her top tier subordinates were to get defeated. We can see from the situation with Luffy and Big Mom that Big Mom essentially seems to be luring Luffy in and challenging him to sort of give him an opportunity to prove himself. She allowed him to arrive on Whole Cake Island and also gave him a reason to arrive by taking Sanji. She then led him directly to her main island and sent one of her strongest subordinates, Cracker, to head him off. Again, almost like she's luring him in and then giving him a one-on-one opportunity to sort of get to her. She then comments later that she's now kind of getting disappointed in the idea that Luffy will ever actually arrive and save Sanji. Almost as though she was kind of hoping that Luffy would defeat Cracker and then arrive and face her directly to sort of prove himself. So why would she be angry if she is actually excited for the opportunity to face off directly against Luffy? And so the same situation could be applied to the other supernova that Big Mom has faced over the course of time during the time skip, like Arouge. I honestly view the situation with Arouge being similar to the situation with Luffy. That Arouge was in some way lured to her island. She was kind of hoping that he was strong enough to reach her, but then he proved to be too weak and therefore Big Mom was disappointed. So I don't really see her being so angry at the defeat of Snack if that's what she wanted. And so guys, obviously this is speculative. It's not confirmed yet, but this is what I believe. So honestly, I think that Big Mom sort of is at an obstacle for pirates to overcome in the New World. That's sort of what she enjoys doing. But at the same time, she needs to maintain her reputation and be that scary force. Not somebody who's like, oh, you know, you come to my island, you get a little battle with me, and then you leave, which seems to be what's happening all the time. She needs to create the impression that those who arrive on their island will get the full wrath of a Yonko. And so that's why there's a rumor that Arouge died, a rumor that Big Mom was so angry that she created a storm and completely annihilated Arouge along with Cracker. All of these things are just pretenses Big Mom makes in order to maintain her worldwide image of being merciless and overpowered. But I do want to throw in one thing before I end this video, which is that this was actually revealed to me through Pharaohspace, another really great YouTuber who honestly has been on fire recently with some excellent ideas. And so in his sort of review to the last chapter, he discussed that we've already seen Big Mom using the powers of Prometheus and Zeus, which is in the fight where she went crazy and she was sort of fighting her son Moscato, we can see her punching the ground, and in one punch we can see actually fire forming, and in another punch we can clearly see electricity being produced. So this clearly gives Big Mom some other powers aside from her soul power, and could in some way be related to the overall image that she can control the weather. And I think that honestly we've already seen Prometheus and Zeus as well, which is that you'll notice that some of Big Mom's homies are the sun and the clouds. The sun being Prometheus, the clouds being Zeus. I honestly think that this is the inspiration for the idea that Big Mom in her right hand controls Prometheus, in her left hand controls the cloud god Zeus. So the obvious question is, how the hell does Big Mom create a sun? This clearly isn't the real sun, it's a homie sun. But like, what actually makes it? Same thing with the clouds. How exactly does Big Mom animate a cloud or a fake sun? And then additionally, when she throws the sun, it explodes. So clearly there's some properties that she can give to her homies to make them in some way destructive. The sun straight up exploded. Like, what is this? So honestly, I believe that Big Mom's ability to, in some way create fire with her punches and electricity has to do with the power of whatever she can give the homies. And I think that this has something to do with their soul fruit, but I do not think that her soul fruit can give the powers, give her powers over weather. For me, the ability to punch and create fire and create electricity is completely different from straight up manipulating the weather. So I personally believe that Big Mom can't actually manipulate the weather, but she does have some abilities which grant her unique powers through her soul fruit that can imitate some of the elements. But yeah, guys, this was highly speculative, the majority of it. I threw out a lot of ideas for you to think about. This is mainly a discussion post more than it is a theory post, but I hope that you enjoyed it. There's a lot to talk about, and I'm sure there will be even more ideas in the future for us to possibly consider. But I think that honestly we should wait for more details until we get absolutely sure about what we think is going on. Let me know what you think. Like the video if you liked the video. I'd appreciate it if you subscribed, and as always, dudes, have a wonderful day.